Good evening, Cebu. Good evening, Philippines. It's open mic night tonight, and Pitsenyor, it's Sinulog. We have a very special guest, a very handsome guest. He has been in show business for decades, but he also served as chairman of the Optical Media Board. He was a candidate for vice president in 2010, and I voted for him then. I'm very proud to say that. And now he's running for senator, Mr. Edu Manzano.
Yeah, good evening, Mike.
Pitsenyor?
Pitsenyor at Pitsenyor to everybody out there. And yes, decades.
Decades.
Okay, yeah. For
Doesn't
nice
show.
opening salvo, huh?
Doesn't show.
Thank you. Thank you.
I thought Luis was here today, not the father.
Oh, just lay it on thick. Sige na. You're good. You're good. Tama sila. You are the best.
But Luis promised to be on the show, but naunahan mo siya.
Yeah. Well, okay, well, age before beauty.
Okay.
Okay.
But do you have the same sense of humor as your son? Because Luis is very funny on Facebook.
No, I have to disagree with you. I don't think my son is funny. I think my son is insane.
Insanely funny. Yeah,
He
that's
needs professional help. Anak, please listen to your father. Get some help.
true. What does that make of me that I laugh at his jokes? Do I also need professional help?
Son, bring him along.
Okay, but you're here because you're running for office.
Basically, I come here quite often. I know you know
Yes.
that we have mutual friends.
Yes, we do.
And renewing ties. And Sinulog is always a very special time in this nation's history.
You have a special someone in Cebu?
No, that's one. But not that I haven't tried in the past, because everybody's beautiful in Cebu.
Yes. Thank you.
No, and also at the same time, I attended a wedding of MJ Versosa and Nicole Herrera yesterday. And I went to a friend's place, si Kenneth Dong.
All right.
So, and at the same time, yes, I am running.
That's good news, no? But in 2010, that was the first time you ran for office.
No, I used to be the vice mayor of Makati.
And yes, you were. And then you were Optical Media Board also.
Chairman for 6 years.
6 years, under President Arroyo.
Yes, under President Arroyo.
The difference between the Optical Media Board and the MTRCB, people don't really know the distinction, no? But
Yes.
MTRCB is classification and ratings.
Optical Media Board is a law enforcement agency.
Anti-piracy.
With law enforcement powers.
I'd like to ask, I wonder what your thoughts are on. I heard it from my teacher. I don't know if it's really a thing or maybe he just coined the term, institutional piracy. Because I was very against, my ex knows this, against buying pirated DVDs. In fact, I would just buy original, so that it's not very expensive. I'd buy the original VCDs at Astrovision. I was very strict about that. And then a teacher of mine said that there is such a thing as institutional piracy for titles that are very rare, that it's okay to pirate them because for posterity.
Yes.
What do you think?
We to a certain degree were a bit more lenient during our time because, for one, again, there were some films that you would never ever be able to access in the future. Also, at the same time, certain books.
Yeah.
For as long as they were using it for educational purposes, we were good.
Okay.
But if you tried to gain from it financially, that was a different story because now you're depriving someone else of that income.
That's right.
So
Intellectual
basically,
property.
copyright and trademark infringes.
So you were in show business, and of course that makes you a public person. But at what point in your public life as a celebrity, as a game show host, I love the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, at which point did you decide that you wanted to use your sway, your celebrity power, and pursue public service?
Okay. After high school, I joined I was in the U.S. Air Force.
Okay.
And after serving in the military, I came back. But because of my job in the States, I couldn't find a job in the Philippines. So I went back to LaSalle to study.
You were not yet in show business?
Not yet.
Okay.
And I wasn't making enough money. So I took a sideline. I started writing for a gentleman called Ariel Ureta.
Oh, yes.
I was his skit writer for his show Ariel After 6. And then one day I did a skit, and the one who was supposed to portray a role never showed up. So the director says, you wrote it, you acted it. So I did. And then sa gabi, he says, write another skit tomorrow and put yourself also in the cast. So that's how it started.
The showbiz thing.
The showbiz thing. And then, what I did then was, my family is very, very active in public service. One of them was Ting Ting Kuangko. She's a first cousin. Her mother and my father, brother and sisters. So she was also active in Mindanao during the first ARMM elections.
That's right.
So
And
she
she's
pulled
a
me
Muslim
in.
scholar. She's a scholar of
Muslim
Islamic
studies, yeah. She brought me there. And that was my first initiation
Okay.
into politics.
Late 80, was it the
That was
late-
1987, the first ARM elections. So prior to that. So I ended up living in Mindanao. Tawi-Tawi, Jolo, Maguindanao, Lanao del Sur.
So you had like an exposure, an early exposure.
A very shocking exposure to say.
Especially at the time, no?
At that time.
Must
you
have been
know.
worse than it is now.
Yeah, because at that time, many of those who had acquired power during the past regime,
Dispensation, yeah.
you know, did not exactly want to let go.
That's right.
So it was actually
The transition made it more difficult.
No, and coming from the EDSA revolution, all of a sudden everybody wanted freedom. Everybody wanted to be part of the movement. Right. So there was a lot of passion, you know, a lot of desire, and a lot of so-called principles at stake.
Idealism.
Sobra. So that's what happened.
So that was your initiation.
Yes, yeah.
So even at the time, you were looking at a career in public service at some point.
Yeah, because I was never really an actor. I was an accidental actor.
That's right.
It
So
was-
it was acting was just maybe now a means to an end, no? In a way.
No, again, an opportunity presented itself where I could make more money doing something which seemed like fun at the time rather than the job I was undertaking.
And not only that, you know, it because of that and knowing how the Philippines is, that we vote for popular. Democracy is essentially a popularity contest.
Definitely.
Especially in the Philippines. No?
More so, the level of fanaticism.
It's even more true in the Philippine setup. So, in a way, it works for you.
No, and you know, again, they have become accidental, but you know, after you started getting into the industry, it became a job because it's not easy to stay there forever. You know, many people come and they get really hot for 1 or 2 or 3 years, and then they slowly fade. If you really want to stay, you know, there's a constant need for you to improve, to reinvent yourself, and then I thought I wanted to be part of the process. Remember, I was already of age. You know, when I joined the industry, I
How
was
old
not
were
a
you?
child star. I was doing 30.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm 60 now.
wow.
Wow. So, but you didn't have to say wow. you could have just kept quiet, you know.
Sorry. Well, it's a free country, sorry.
Can we edit this and just start from the very beginning again?
No, wow, because you don't look like you're 60.
Let's try again.
My dad is 60, so
Again, that wasn't a nice thing to say. You do not look like my son at all.
yeah, I don't look like Luis. Anyway,
So, and then I was getting of age or maturing more into life. I wanted to do something more responsible. So I got very active, like I said, with in the first ARMM elections. And then I had a chance to serve directly as a public servant. So I ran again for the Vice Mayor of Makati and I won.
that was what the year?
That was 1998.
Okay.
Okay, and then I started helping out after I left public office. I again started helping my cousin. You know, she became the governor of Tarlac. So, by the way, the first governor general of Iloilo, my hometown, is my great grandfather.
Oh,
So there's a little bit of blood.
It's really there.
Yeah.
It's genetic.
Oh, well, I'd like to think so. So afterwards, I realized that there were many things about public service that kind of made me want to pursue higher office.
But let's go back. You said you served in the U.S. Air Force. Does that make you a pilot? Because my grandfather was also a captain in the U.S. Air Force. He was a pilot, so I wonder if you are also a pilot.
Well, wala yan sa lolo ko.
yung great grandfather mo, great.
Tsaka general siya.
So are you a pilot?
No, out of high school. I was an enlisted
Okay.
man.
All right.
And then what happened was, it was the Vietnam War in 1972. So the reason joining the Air Force was my father saying, well, since you're going to enlist, why walk when you can fly? Okay. So I ended up working for a Strategic Air Command base, FE Warren Air Force Base in Cheyenne, Wyoming, in the Missile Engineering Group.
So, did you have to be an American citizen to be? Of course.
No, during the Vietnam War, we already had a Filipino presence
Okay.
in the person of the PhilCAG, Philippine Civic Action Group, which was headed by Fidel V. Ramos.
Okay.
And since we had a Mutual Defense Treaty of 1951, they allowed Filipinos to also fight in the war against, at that time, the spread of communism in Southeast Asia.
Oh, so you don't have the same issue as Senator Poe that you were once American.
No. The thing was, my parents, when we were young, went to America, but it was easier to go to America because there was opportunity for them there. And my father went to school, and I was born there.
Oh.
All of us were born.
Okay.
But see, there's it's the application of two laws. In America, you can be from Iceland, but if you're born in America, automatic, you're an American citizen.
That's right.
But the Philippines recognizes your bloodline. America is jus soli. Philippines
Natural
is
born.
natural born
Through your
based on
parents.
through your parents. So America would recognize me as American. The Philippines would recognize me as a Filipino.
And you were always Filipino.
I lived here. I studied here. If I would go there at all, it was for vacations.
Talking about your education, I'm very curious what you took up in college, but we have to pause for the short break.
Why?
Open mic.
Why do we have to
We'll be
pause?
right back.
I'm doing well.
Yes, you are.
Yeah. No, why do we have to come? Why do we have to pause?
Wala na. They stopped already.
Why you stop?
Okay, we're back. We're back because of Edu's protestations. Because he's
I'm on a roll. Come
yes,
on.
he was doing well, so we're back. We're back here at Open Mic. Education. What did you take
Okay.
up in college?
Well, no, after my education in the Air Force,
It's more military.
no, as a matter of fact, since we were in missile engineering, we used to work in the silos. So they give you a job-specific education.
Okay.
Your training. We would maintain through all the systems. We became what they were calling systems engineers, because in the event of an attack on America, they should be able to send that ICBM or that whole defense shield that they have. So we were trained on plumbing, mechanical, electrical, refrigeration, because that's exactly the system that surrounded the ICBM.
Very Star Wars.
Yeah, actually, we saw everything. I mean, for me, it was a wake-up experience. And then when I came back to Manila, with my experience, I couldn't find a job. Who'd hire we don't have missiles here. We don't have the silos here. So I went back to LaSalle and I wanted to take up liberal arts and economics.
Okay.
And then afterwards, my second year, I ended up playing for LaSalle in the NCAA.
All right. Wow.
And then basketball. And then after that, I ended up getting a job as a systems man for a shipping firm.
And so your experience in the US?
Yeah, they saw what experience was. Because even when I was in school, I was sending out my biodata for people to look for. And I was studying LaSalle via the GI Bill of Rights. So that's what happened. And I worked there. And then I started getting better and better jobs. But before I came home, I also worked for the Bank of America.
Oh.
So there was a long time that I was in the private sector.
When you ran for vice president in 2010, and we all know how national elections can, bring out the worst in people and the worst in your opponents. Did they ever raise that experience with the Air Force as like what they're doing to Senator Poe, who is the standard bearer of your state?
The citizenship issue was raised in 1998.
Oh, it was.
Yes, when by my
vice
opponent for vice mayor, and it went all the way to the Supreme Court, and eventually, through Justice Vicente Mendoza, he wrote the opinion. He was the ponente that said Edu Manzano is a natural-born Filipino.
I think there's no issue there.
There's no. It's part of right now. It's part of jurisprudence already.
But the part where you fought, or that you were part of the U.S. Air Force, that you're ready to defend America, was that ever raised against you?
Not
because they're raising it against Senator Poe, that the oath of allegiance.
Right. No, at that time, because we had a mutual defense treaty, it opened the doors for Filipinos who wanted to serve and fight. And that's how that's where the difference lies.
Yeah, because yours is, you were part of it still as a Filipino.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
part of that treaty that we had
Right.
as both Philippines and America.
correct. Or any other country, whenever their sovereignty is threatened, they're part of a defense treaty.
That's right.
I would have probably done the same.
I just wonder, because how politics sometimes can, especially when people are desperate, they raise anything and everything.
Well, you hope that maybe an election will bring out the best in people, but sometimes it can also bring out the worst.
Yeah, that's the sad fact of life.
Yeah.
So now, speaking of all these citizenship and allegiance issues, you are running for senator under Senator Grace Poe and under
Slate, yes.
Senator Cheese Escudero.
Yes, I am.
And then there are two disqualification cases in the COMELEC, two different branches, and they're now in the Supreme Court.
Right.
But a few days ago, the Supreme Court upheld
Yes.
the TRO that was issued by
Chief Justice.
Chief Justice Sereno
Yes.
with an overwhelming majority.
Of 12-3
12-3.
in bag.
And that gives us a good idea.
That's a ray of hope.
Yeah, a ray of hope. No?
Yeah.
That they might, because they could have killed it at the onset, right?
Right there and there. And if you notice, the three justices who did not agree with Justice Sereno in the issuance of the TRO were the same three justices in the Senate Electoral Tribunal.
Yes, that's right. So that was expected.
Yes.
Although the
But
12 is not
hindi
an assurance.
nadagdag. I mean, and nobody, it wasn't added on.
That's
It
right.
stayed at 3.
Although it's not an assurance, it's a good sign.
It's a good sign.
So you're hopeful.
Very hopeful.
What is there a timeline? Are you guys? Is the slate aware of a timeline that you expect the Supreme Court to come up with a decision?
Well, the oral arguments will be starting on the 19th of January.
January, okay.
Yeah.
Next
I
week.
think many people are saying, of course, everybody's a conspiracy theorist during elections, but they were saying the main idea was to ensure that her name would be stricken off the ballot. That was part one, But now that she's been granted the TRO, plus the timeline of the Supreme Court and the COMELEC, her name will remain on the ballot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But speaking of conspiracy theories and theorists, I was speaking with a friend who is a respected reporter from ABS-CBN, and his theory naman is if Senator Poe gets the Supreme Court nod and she is in the ballot, they will move heaven and earth to make sure that the elections are not automated.
That's another one.
Have you heard of that?
There's so many stories going
Have you
around.
heard of that?
Everybody was saying, if you notice that the COMELEC, once more, Supreme Court upheld the awarding of the COMELEC to Smartmatic. So I don't know how that's going to play. So, reverting back to manual voting, I think it's not going to happen.
But it's interesting, talking about all these theories and what the naysayers say, and cognizant of your personal experience, well, you've had successes. No? I mean, you were vice mayor, and then you were chair of the OMB. Incidentally, in your slate, Senator Poe was MTRCB chair.
Correct.
So I served under her. But you had 2010. That was the last election you participated in.
Yes.
And it's interesting that you're not disheartened, and you still believe in the system. You still believe in the process.
I believe in the people. The process is always going to be there. If it can be abused to favor one candidate, it will be abused. But now you're finding more and more people are becoming more and more active on social media. More and more people now are not afraid to have their voices heard. And I hope it continues. I hope people actually don't just critique from their homes or their iPads or their laptops. I hope to see people actually go to the polling centers, because it's your right to be heard via the vote.
I asked that. I raised that issue because your running mate in 2010, former Defense Secretary Gibo Teodoro,
Yep.
who was very popular in Cebu in the last presidential elections, he seems to have shied away from
Yes,
public
yes.
life.
But many people to this day are saying we wish that he was running in this election.
For president.
Well, they just wish he was running, if not for president, even just for senator.
Because I'm one of them.
Everybody believes that he is highly competent.
I put him on the spot a lot of times on Facebook. I would tag him and just, and send him a barrage of, and then people would just comment there. I don't know. I hope I don't offend Secretary Teodoro.
No, but I'll put it this way. Mike, to this day, when Gibo talks, people listen. Yeah.
I voted for President Aquino in 2010. I voted for you for vice. But I always say that is the only regret I have in my life.
Oh, gosh. Are we actually live?
Well, this is me, not you.
Okay. Well, anyway, nice talking to you. Okay. Thank you very much. Oh, I trust you. Take care, ha?
Malapit na matapos ang term, huwag ka matakot.
Baka malapit na ako matapos.
No, but so it would have been nice if Secretary Teodoro took another stab, no? Kasi I would have tried to rectify my monumental mistake in 2010.
Well, Mike is young. Gibo is very, very young, and he still has so much to give. Not
That's right.
just to the country, but he owes us a candidacy.
That's right. Do you still talk to him?
Yes, I do. And I still hold him in very high esteem.
Of course. So, if given the chance, because in the surveys you have improved significantly.
Yes, I have.
From your last survey performance to, from the last and the penultimate survey performance, you've gained how many points? Now you're like within the 15. No?
Yes, I am.
Before you were.
Oh no! When we first started, we've been playing between 13 and 14, 13 and 14. You slip to 15, back to 14.
Okay.
So
and then you don't have ads yet.
No ads, no radio spots.
That's pretty good.
I would like to think so. Yeah. I'm shocked personally by sometimes you see how much money is being spent by a lot of the other candidates. Well, if they have a lot of friends who are giving them a lot of money, good for them.
So speaking of ads and radio and TV, what is your brand? How are you presenting Edu Manzano to the public this time around, as senator to be? Or as an aspiring senator?
No, Mike, I would like to think that I have 60 years of experience. I've done it all. If people still like to connect me with the entertainment industry, I can't help it. But the last movie I made was in 2004. That's 11 years I haven't done a movie. I've been in the private sector. I have businesses. Last time I did a teleserye was in 2006. I did Bridges of Love last year because I wanted, you missed it after a while. And that was enough for me. March to September, end of story. I continue to run restaurants and distribution company. So I'm very happy where I am now. And I'd like to share that. I'm at 60 years old. How would I define myself? Before I go to the checkout counter. I would like to do something. It's payback. Don't you just love this country?
Yes.
I love the
Warts
Philippines.
and all.
Oh, I love the Philippines. It's payback. They gave me the opportunity to put my kids through great schools. My kids are on their way to making lives for themselves. So, ako naman.
That's how you will present yourself.
Yeah.
It's paying it forward.
Pay forward. I've been in government service for quite a number of years.
Cumulatively, how long?
9 years.
9 years.
I've never been accused of any kind of act of malfeasance, no graft, no corruption cases, nada.
You're a rare breed. You're endangered.
Okay.
So, when will your ads start airing?
We're probably going to try to hold on as much as we can. Ads cost a lot of money, so we'll probably wait until the actual campaign proper.
Will you present yourself as as once an actor? And is it part of your packaging? No.
Even without saying it, I don't think I can escape from it. It's
Is it
there.
a liability or no?
It opens the door, put it that way. At the same time, I've worked also very, very hard for those decades that you mentioned. I've worked hard. Also, I've led a relatively controversy-free life.
Which is, like I said, no, it's a very rare thing to. It's a very rare attribute, a very rare image for someone who has served in government.
Thank you. But you're going to have to wrap it up because I just saw the corner of my eye. Somebody says time's up.
You have very good peripheral
Yes,
vision.
in spite of my age.
Time's up for this segment.
Oh, okay. I'm
Yes.
going to pause again.
we have our last segment after we return from this break. We're back here at Open Mic. We're talking about your prospects as senator. So you will have your ads, and then come election day, May, hopefully, you will get the nod of the Filipino people.
Hopefully, we will continue to go around the country, press the flesh, as they say, and try to lay out our agenda and our platform, and hopefully it has traction.
Speaking of platform, what will you present to the people? What is your program of action as a senator?
First and foremost, for me, things that I hold very close to my heart. Number one, it's got to be education.
I agree.
And then after the education, what's the use of an education if you don't have job opportunities? I would like to use my children as an example. My son. I never allowed my children into the business, until they graduate. And after they graduate, you're on your own.
That's a very good condition.
Yeah, and when you think about it, we were just talking about it earlier. Now we seem to live in a borderless world. The world is no longer round; it's flat. All because of iPads and cell phones. You are able to access anything and everything you want at a touch.
We exist in parallel universes.
So what you're having now is a need for us to actually be competitive, not just regionally but globally. And it's only if we are able to provide the right education for the population.
So your experience is basically in executive as OMB chair.
Yes.
Executive, but vice mayor, although it's in the executive, it's an executive position, but it's actually
legislative.
Heading a legislative, the local legislative body of the city.
Correct.
So, were there any ordinances passed in Makati when you were at the helm of the Sanggunian that you think should be replicated in other places and therefore deserve a national piece of
notice? Yeah. I would just like to say that Makati is very unique because it has a very unique tax base. The two biggest barangays in all of the Philippines is in Barangay Bel Air and Barangay San Lorenzo. And this is because of how it has been run by I hope the family doesn't mind, the Ayalas. The Ayalas built Makati and they continue to run it to this day. So if you were to, sometimes I think it might be best to get a businessman who has already made his fortune, and he would like to impart some of his business acumen. So maybe we can run government like a business also.
Yeah. I remember some people were encouraging Manny Pangilinan to run for the same reason.
I believe that if you look at the deficits, see how government subsidizes too many agencies. I see nothing wrong with subsidizing, but it has to be a controlled subsidy. You can't be spending like 1 billion a year in subsidies for a Philippine National Railways. You can't be spending another 800 million to subsidize a National Food Authority or another agency for that matter.
But they have to be regulated well.
And controlled in terms of because the government is not supposed to make money.
But you bring up businesses, and then we talk about regulation of probably industries that we can privatize. The issue there, the flip side to that is the issue of oligarchy.
Yeah.
I was reading a column from I think it was the Inquirer last week, that exposes, our democracy as really more of an oligarchy. And I think it was stating the obvious, but it was well written, so I read it. Because it's obviously an oligarchy, because it's not really the people who elect our leaders.
Right.
It is an elite few from among the people
Yes.
who influence
Right.
the
Public opinion.
discourse,
Yeah.
the issues, and everybody else just follows.
Correct.
But
Sadly.
but the issues really don't come from the poorest of the poor, from the marginalized. No,
Right.
that's not really the case.
It's those who have the
Yeah, so that kind of setup is basically an oligarchy.
Yes. I believe, that, government is there to service. That's why anything and everything, again, when you put that much power in the hands of an elite few, it will always be prone to abuse. They grow larger, and then they have to worry to make sure that they continue to prosper. But sometimes, now with the checks and balances that you put forth, and with the way people are becoming very, very critical through so many different platforms, it might be a chance now for us to be more critical and throw caution to those who choose to abuse.
Yeah, because I think legislation, we have, like it's often said, we have so many laws, but it's really the implementation.
I agree.
Execution. And you've been somehow in both sides of the equation.
Right.
Implementation, execution, and legislation.
Right.
As head of Sanggunian. But I think the Senate and Congress, both houses now, I think it's this is my opinion. The laws now should really be to protect the interests of people.
Right.
And to somehow minimize the abuse or the power of even the private companies, no? Like our issues with telecommunication right now.
Electricity.
Yes, electricity.
Yeah.
Antitrust laws have to be put in place. I mean, or maybe they are, but they're not very strict.
Well, Mike, one of the problems that's looming, is the fact that now with the ASEAN integration, we will have to compete directly with our neighbors. Unless we're prepared, then we're going to slowly see that we'll be at the losing end of things. We have a competitive advantage in many sectors. Manufacturing, we do car parts here, business process outsourcing, creative industries, agriculture. But unless we start putting certain protection clauses internally, then like they say in agriculture, if you don't protect the farmer, putting up right infrastructure, drying facilities, cold storage, giving them better seeds, taking away the middleman. Kasabihan nun is if you kill the farmer, you kill the people.
Of course.
So that's why these are things that we should really sit down.
You should really champion agriculture because that is our core industry.
Right.
And we cannot deviate, too far from our core because that's who we are. And that's an issue of food security, not just here, but
right.
Food, in light of climate change, food security is front and center of that. No, it's not just disaster risk reduction.
Preparedness, preparedness. No, meron silang there's a school of thought here that there has to be a national strategy, and not just as far as defense is concerned. National strategy being, if you get a pizza, and you start to realize how much of this slice do we give, if you look at it from a national budget point of view, do we give to agriculture? How much of this slice do we give to defense? So again, this has to be getting the sectors together,
You are pursuing a higher office now from local government. Well, OMB was national in scope. But who is your inspiration? What is your leadership model like? Is there a particular person in history or in this country that you consider to be the best example for what a leader or how a leader ought to be?
What I miss now is critical discussion, critical discourse. Nawala na eh.
Yeah.
Just because I go against what you're espousing means I'm a bad person. No, it does not. Just because it comes from a lawyer or it comes from a doctor doesn't mean it's factually true. You know, when we talk about, again, like you say, all these disqualification cases, many of the positions of the lawyers are based on the client who is paying them.
That's right.
You know, we've stopped questioning. That's why, that's part of the message I try to bring to the people whenever we go around. Ask the question.
So that is you want a leadership model that's consultative.
Yes,
that
and
promotes discourse.
and bringing in all the stakeholders.
Do you have a person in mind who embodies, that kind of leadership?
You know, I felt in 2010, Gibo Teodoro had that attitude. And I'm not afraid to say that I could see, because having been in the military before, everywhere we would go, you could see from the stamp of a salute if you're respected or not. I would watch how they would salute him. All the way from the officers, all the way down to the regulars, as we call them.
President Arroyo always speaks so highly of Secretary Teodoro, and she's a brilliant economist, and and for her to say that Gibo is brilliant, intelligent, and very competent, that I think also speaks volumes.
She didn't say anything about me.
Wait, I'm gonna make up something.
We'll pause for a short break.
Of course, you were in that slate.
Yeah.
That means that she believes you.
No, we should go on. Again, I really, really believe we have to bring it back. Just because I'm not with you doesn't mean I'm against you.
Oh, I have a recent experience about that. That's how it is now. People, especially in social media, just because you disagree with them,
diba?
they're very sensitive. Don't be in social media if you cannot take criticism of you. Criticism leveled against you or your candidate. Let's just agree to disagree, no?
Correct.
And coexist in an atmosphere of civility.
That's why I guess it's time that even all the millennials, or the pillennials as I call them, should actually stand up and ask the hard questions to all the candidates that they encounter. Ask the candidates to answer their questions. And then now it's time for critical thinking. You have to decide who you feel is the person most worthy of your vote.
That's right. If you were in the Senate now, in the current Senate, what do you think is a defining issue for this particular Senate? And what would have been your position on the matter?
I would like to bring everybody home, the OFWs. Nobody wants to leave this country. It's a beautiful country. The only reason people leave is because it's a lack of opportunity. It's only in the Philippines where you don't have to know your neighbor, but if you have no sugar, you have no salt, no cooking oil, you can knock and they'll share. It's that sense of community that exists in this country.
But you also said that you're a borderless world.
Yes. No, but now what we're having here is, like in this country, we have people right now who can just go to a sari-sari store and lista. It's time that we create the opportunities now to allow these people to come home. Nobody wants to leave their families. There's too many social costs in this country.
And the taxes are so high.
And
the highest in Asia.
The highest in Asia, and we keep on saying they're going, no, there's no way. How are we going to feed how are we going to take care of the programs that we've already started? But then again, everybody knows it's increased revenue collection. And it's like it's just a cycle. If you help people put more money in their pockets, they'll have greater purchasing power. Greater purchasing power means more production. More production means more jobs. So, at the end of the day, at least you'll have people home with their families, watching their children grow up, watching their children graduate from school.
And we wouldn't have, we'd have lesser Mary Jane Veloso incidents.
Yeah.
Because that was really, it kept the entire country anxious.
True.
Yeah.
True. No, and Mike, I hope you don't mind, but if you're going to listen to the data that's being passed around, we already have over 9 million Filipinos abroad. We're still losing 6,000 people every day who are still leaving the country. So that's what does it say about us? And we're depending on remittances. just to keep us afloat. What happens, now that they're having in strife-torn areas, where they had Filipino presence, and now they're slowly coming home.
And there's this there's strain between Saudi and Iran.
Yemen and Syria, all of this, and who knows what's going to be happening if you, I'm sorry, I don't want to sound complicated, but if you listen to the global financial experts, it's going to be a very, very tough first quarter for 2016.
I think it's the double dip recession they were talking about.
Well, I hope it's not going to happen that way.
Yeah. But in my opinion, I agree to a large extent with what you're saying. But I also think that the opportunities are there. It's okay. But maybe if you can allow me, I think young people should just be coached. No, I think government can be there, and it can be part of our education system. That we coach young people with life choices. No?
Yes.
Making life skills, smart life skills. Now, for example, you can choose to be an OFW. You can choose to be a citizen of the world. But maybe if you make a choice like that, delay marriage.
Right.
So you don't have to have a family where your children are looking for their father or their mother, or they grow up without them. No? Or you endanger yourself, and then you have a family left behind. So maybe before you make a decision like that, you see the world. You earn, you educate yourself, and you come back with your money. Maybe, So I think that's what's lacking because I serve in the National Youth Commission. And that's what I see is lacking, life skills.
Because you want to give them the choice again.
The choice, an intelligent choice.
Yeah, it's not because you're forced by circumstance.
Yeah.
And all of this also brings forth.
Yeah, if they leave, it's not because they have to and they have no choice, but because they want to.
They want to, exactly. So I think maybe it'd be nice if we can just create opportunities here. And it isn't far-fetched. Again, we need to also visit, the Constitution with the pagdating sa mga economic provisions, on encouraging foreign investment and things like that. Because
what about the foreign bases?
Right now, of course, the nationalists will say no. With our sovereignty. Yeah, but you have somebody there who's lurking in the shadows, and we can't seem to do anything about. Enough of the saber rattling. It's not going to help anything. Those are two cards. One card is the sovereignty. The other card is the economic card. We could try to look at being less politic and try to work together in terms of economic exchange. Some of those islands out there, we have this crazy idea. Why don't we make them research stations for marine biologists, people who want to study the seas? They can use these islands as research centers.
So there are a lot of issues, no? Leading to the elections.
Yeah.
What do you think is the most crucial and the most contentious issue that the candidates will be talking about in the lead up to the elections?
Well, I believe at this point it's also going to see how current events globally is going to affect us internally. Yeah. Where everybody's going to be changing or adjusting their positions depending on how directly we get affected by what's happening around.
But isn't it difficult for a candidate like you or those leading your team, Senator Poe and Senator Escudero? Because, for example, global issues are very highbrow, no? And maybe the class AB would understand. But for example, China and our foreign policy, the masses don't really have an appreciation for that.
That's what we understand. Alam na natin, we already know that. But what they don't seem to understand is that it's going to, there'll be a deep impact as far as their lives are concerned. So you leave it upon people who are running for higher office to try to be able to verbalize it or explain it to
so that they know,
so that they understand, what lies
is at
ahead.
Stake. Yeah. So Senator Poe, why are you under Senator Poe? There is Vice President Binay, who was Mayor of Makati, where you were Vice Mayor.
Yeah.
Were you Vice Mayor under him?
It was his wife, Dr. Binay, who was the mayor when I was Vice Mayor.
And then you have
Mayor Duterte.
Mayor Duterte. And then
Miriam
and Mar Rojas, former DILG Secretary. Yeah. So why are you under Senator Poe?
More or less, everybody has the same platform. But I go with that slogan for me, yung walang iwanan.
Yeah.
That's very, very important for me.
Why does it resonate with you?
Because I come from a small town, Concepcion, Iloilo. I see how we were affected by all the natural calamities, and the people actually have no other choice. They know no other livelihood. So part of the program is the coastal resource management. We, like you're talking about skills, we have to teach them skills, for they have other alternatives to look forward to in the event they lose their source of livelihood. Yeah. When you see poverty today, is nobody can say that their lives are actually better. The numbers are always, surveys are not always a true indicator. So you have to actually go around and see that poverty exists not only in the countryside, but even in Metro Manila.
The slogan of your team is, I think, ably symbolized by the MRT, because it's the poor, the middle class, who have to take the MRT every day. Kung hindi ka man maiwan, siksikan, pahirapan.
Yeah.
Or otherwise, maiwan ka kasi walang tren.
And which each passing day, palala ng palala yung problema. And there were how many years to address this issue? 6 years, and there aren't that many big ticket items again in the private and public partnerships. So
it took so long.
We had a chance to actually start something and allow future administrations to continue, if not improve.
Yeah, and our economic growth was not supported by growth in infrastructure.
Yeah.
Which would have resulted in the trickle-down effect.
Yes, which everybody talks about.
Yeah, which would have made growth inclusive.
Yeah.
So the last 5 years for me are a wasted opportunity.
Wasted. I know they wanted to make sure that only those who actually can do the job will be awarded the contract, but along the way, so much time
Can do the job, or those who they know.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Anyway, nice talking to you again.
Mama Sapano, should the hearing be reopened in the Senate?
If there's new evidence.
Because it's almost a year.
I hope it's not going to be used as a platform to politic.
To politic, yeah.
But if there actually is new evidence that will help shed light into other aspects of what actually happened, by all means.
Yeah. For justice,
Yeah,
for the sake of justice.
For the 44.
And their families.
Exactly what has been done for their families so far? How much of the promises have been actually delivered?
Unfortunately, our time is up.
What?
Yes, but we extended for you.
Are you serious?
The first time.
That's it? Tapos na?
Yeah. One last question.
No more. No more. You said it's up.
No! Who is Edu Manzano?
I'm a guy who would like to see his people one day say he was a good guy.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good night.
Good night.
And to everyone in Cebu, good night, Godspeed, and Pit Senor.
Pit Senor.